Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It is in the directions below. Reach out to Team Mosso for your purchase and pricing details of this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Reach out to me for pricing. I am tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today we are discussing a 250-piece white gold limited edition from 2019. This is the Lange Söhne Lange 1 25th anniversary model. There were 10 limited editions that came out in 2019 to mark a quarter century of the reborn a.lange Söhne. Of course, the original company created by a.lange in 1845. Today, its legal successor is Glashütte Original. The company we know as a.lange Söhne was refounded by Walter Lange, the last watchmaking scion of the original Lange family, in 1990. And principally, it was Walter Lange and Günter Blümlein who helped to reestablish the German high-end watchmaker through the early 1990s. This is an homage to the very earliest days of the reborn brand. And it is one of the original four models. The Lange 1 came out in 1994 alongside the Arcade, the Saxonia, and the Pour le Mérite Tourbillon. So it makes sense that this white gold 250-piece limited edition would be the original Lange 1 model in the original 38.5 millimeter case size. The watch is 10.9 millimeters thick. It's a little bit thicker than standard for reasons that will become apparent in a moment. 47 millimeters from one lug to the opposite side, so that's the distance across the wrist. There's a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Now, when I put the watch on my wrist, you could see it's a good fit. Now, it was considered fairly large by the standards in 1994, but the world seems to have grown into the idea that 38.5 is an ideal meat-of-the-market dress watch size, and it wears really nicely on a 60-centimeter circumference wrist. You can see down the barrel, over the top, and the cuff shot. It'll slide underneath a tight cuff. It is a dress watch, after all. I recommend it for a wrist of 14 centimeters circumference or larger. The strap that's fit, as you can see, is a Jean Rousseau model, made in Paris by hand for Lange Söhne. On the bottom, a wonderful, supple, almost buttery calfskin, and on the top, in the same color, large rectangular scale, symmetrical scale alligator leather of a very high grade. We have a lightly contrasting argenté stitch that matches the dial. And then we have something that was not standard on this model, which is a double deployant clasp, a big upgrade and an expensive one at the point of sale. It is gray gold like the rest of the watch, so this will help prevent dropping your watch. That's the benefit of a deployant. So this is a really nice consideration that the original owner paid a lot of money to obtain for you, the next owner. About gray gold. Gray gold is an 18-karat white gold that is white all the way through. It doesn't need to be rhodium plated. It's not quite as bright as rhodium plated white gold, which means it doesn't look like platinum. It's got more warmth through it. But here's the thing. If you scratch through it, it's the same color underneath. Whereas with rhodium plate, you see that milky yellow underneath, and it becomes an eyesore. So gray gold is the good stuff, used by Rolex, JLC, Grubel Forsey, De Bethune, a.lange Söhne, and many other high-end manufacturers. But Lange does not make its cases or its clasps. So if you're wondering why there's usually Swiss hallmarks on Lange clasps, bracelets, and cases, the very simple reason for that is that these pieces are generally made in Switzerland, and you can see the Brogioli B right there for a clasp and bracelet maker well known in Italian-speaking Switzerland down in Ticino. So if you've ever wondered why there are Swiss hallmarks on Lange watches, now you know. The case is very typical of Lange, a design that Günter Blümlein specified in the early days. The round case with the stepped-out lugs gives them a very distinctive look and more than a passing resemblance to a pocket watch. Lugs are polished with a sort of soft bevel on the side. The bezel is polished, the case back is polished. We have satination at the mid case. If you look, you can actually see the edges, the outer facets of the double date trigger. Those are actually polished, but the outer face of it satinated. We have a Lange branded crown, push-down crown, 30-meter water resistance. You can see how the case back is actually stepped inwards, so the watch looks even thinner when it's on the wrist. And then we have a bezel that has a very small vertical lip and then a domed profile. The dial, argenté, it is actually sterling silver, so a solid disc of AG 925. We have blued hands and a polished frame for the double-digit date, the panorama datum, which, by the way, was originally a JLC patent. JLC, via Günter Blümlein, actually donated that to Lange so they'd have a distinctive look on their dials. JLC went and then later designed its own double-digit date so it could keep using the complication on its own patent. We have a lovely sort of silver white with recesses that have a lovely soft-grained, almost media-blasted texture to them. And then we have a soft glow, what Patek Philippe would describe as opaline. It's not a directional sunburst with brushing. It's more of a soft frosted finish. And you can see several different focal planes and boundaries created by the wrought sterling silver dial. We do have a lovely little crosshair seconds hand. I will fire this watch up so you can see it in action. There's a power reserve indicator off at 3 o'clock, up and down. Doppelfederhaus, that means 2 mainspring barrels. This is down, this is up, the power reserve indicator for the 72-hour twin barrel manual wind power reserve. And then we have a hacking seconds function, so you can stop the seconds hand if you wish to synchronize to a reference time. Made in Germany, state of Saxony, Eastern Germany, the traditional watchmaking heartland of Germany. And of course, I should mention that the feel of this pusher system for the double date is actually as sharp as a fine column wheel chronograph, like say a dotograph. On the reverse side, you can see 25 years Lange 1, a combination of engraving, polishing, and then media blasting. Gunter Blumlein, Walter Lange. There were others like Hartmut Knote, but they were the principals that are officially sanctioned as the co-refounders by the Richemont-owned company. Taking a quick look underneath, by the way, that little manufacturer dating back to the 19th century, that's still part of Lange's manufacturing and office complex today in Glashütte. Open it all up. Now you can see why this watch is thicker than a standard Lange 1. And note that it's hinged at the lugs rather than at the side of the case. Very different take on a Hunter case back than you see on the Swiss watches. Good on them. Individual numbering out of 250. There's a lot of companies, some of them in the Richemont group, that have a habit of just writing 1 out of whatever number, so 1 out of 250. Individual numbering in a small way makes each example unique. Now we have the caliber L121, which is actually the second generation Lange 1 movement that came out in 2015. So we have a few things that are different here, such as a free sprung balance with the adjustments principally made using variable inertia bolts on the balance wheel, and different architecture to the 3/4 bridge. You can see that the access panels are not as obvious here, so you don't have those little mid-bridge cutaways. Still a 3 Hz beat rate, still 5-position adjusted like a chronometer. It is still a beautifully decorated movement, and you can see that the German silver, the material used, gives it a golden hue. This is a nickel copper zinc alloy that does not need to be plated, and it is a throwback to the pocket watch era, as is the 3/4 style plate, as is the use of golden chaton cup held by screws, because in the past that is how you would fix a jewel to a bridge or a plate before it was possible to precisely press them directly into bridges and plates. We have both fire blued screws and, as you can see, polished screws in a few applications here. We have black polish on the swan's neck fine adjustment mechanism, the cap to the escape wheel, and of course the case clamp screws. Now if you look really carefully, you could see that the balance cock, which is a freehand engraved component on Lange watches, here it's been freehand engraved and then blue inked, and then there's a little 25 on the balance cock. It is a beautiful movement. You can see, though there are not a lot of bridges, the edge of them featuring a classically gorgeous anglage or mirrored beveling, and then stripes across the bridges, because we're not in Switzerland, so these aren't Côte de Genève. And then we have twin mainspring barrels, which means that the watch, yes, it has a 72-hour power reserve, but the twin barrels feature phased mainsprings. So from maximum wind to nearly minimum wind necessary to operate, the torque curve stays very flat, amplitude's very constant, and the watch is a superb timekeeper. Amid all of that, 30-meter water resistance, and this is all pivoting on 43 pivot jewels, so a really special watch on both sides. You've got that non-standard upgrade clasp, you've got this Hunter caseback, you've got the engraved caseback, beautifully engraved, by the way. Closes with a nice sharp snap, and a limited edition, one of 10 individual series launched for the 25th anniversary. The ultimate Lange collection would include one of each of the 10, and as they say, the holy trinity of Lange, or the big three, or the triad, it's going to be a dotograph, it's going to be a Lange 1, it's going to be a Zeitwerk, and I can't think of many Lange 1s that are more special than this. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.